The engine of my old push mower sputtered, but I kept pushing. I knew exactly how to angle the wheels so the stripes on the grass looked perfect. I had planted this Kentucky bluegrass 40 years ago. I built the porch with my own hands. I laid every brick in the driveway. Even though the letter from the bank said I didn't own it anymore, my hands didn't understand. To my hands, this was still my life. "Hey, old man!" I didn't stop. My hearing aids were turned down, mostly because I didn't want to hear the silence of an empty house. I said, "Cut the engine!" A heavy hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun around, nearly losing my footing. It was a police officer, young, maybe 25. He had that look, impatience mixed with pity. Behind him stood a woman in a sharp suit holding a clipboard, and a man I didn't recognize. "Sir," the officer said, shouting to be heard over the dying rumble of the mower, "Mrs. Gable here says you're trespassing, again." I wiped sweat from my forehead with a grease-stained handkerchief. "Trespassing? Officer, I'm mowing the lawn. It's Saturday. I always mow on Saturday." "It's not your lawn anymore, Mr. Carter," the woman in the suit snapped. She didn't look at me, she looked at her phone. "The bank foreclosed 3 months ago. The new owners move in on Tuesday. You need to leave the premises immediately or we will press charges." My chest tightened, not from the exertion, but from the shame. I looked at the house. My wife, Martha, had died in that front bedroom. We raised our boys in that kitchen. "I just wanted it to look nice," I whispered, my voice trembling. "For the new folks. I didn't want them to think I didn't care." The officer sighed. "Look, Raymond, just go. Don't make me cuff you in front of the neighbors." I saw Mrs. Higgins from next door peeking through her curtains. She quickly looked away. That hurt more than the handcuffs would have. I nodded slowly, my dignity feeling like ash in my throat. "All right, I'm going." I let go of the mower. It sat there in the middle of a half-finished stripe. Leaving it felt like leaving a limb behind. I walked toward my rusted Ford F-150 parked on the street. My dog, Buster, lifted his head from the passenger seat, his tail thumping. He didn't know we were homeless. He just thought we were going for a ride. As I reached the truck, I saw a black sedan pull up. My nephew, Greg, stepped out. He was smiling. Greg wore a suit that cost more than my truck. He didn't see me at first. He walked right up to the woman with the clipboard and shook her hand. They laughed, a loud, comfortable laugh that echoed down the quiet street. I froze, my hand on the truck door handle. Greg was supposed to be handling my finances. He was the one who told me the pension checks were delayed by the government. He was the one who said I should sign those papers a year ago to protect the asset from taxes. "Uncle Ray," Greg finally noticed me. His smile didn't drop, but his eyes shifted. He checked to see if the cop was listening. "What are you doing here? I told you, the facility is expecting you." "The facility," I repeated. The word tasted like copper. "The one with the hallway that smells like urine?" Greg stepped closer, lowering his voice. "It's a retirement community, Ray. Look, don't cause a scene. You signed the papers. You couldn't afford the upkeep here. I did you a favor." "A favor?" I looked at the house. "I built that foundation, Greg. I paid the mortgage off in 1998. How could I not afford the upkeep?" "Taxes, insurance, medical bills, it adds up," he dismissively said, checking his watch. "Look, just get in the truck, go to the home. I'll drop by on Sunday with some magazines." He turned his back on me. He turned his back on the man who taught him how to throw a baseball, the man who paid for his college tuition when his own father, my brother, passed away. I got in the truck. Buster licked my cheek, sensing the rage boiling in my blood. I started the engine. It coughed, struggling to turn over. "Come on, old girl, don't quit on me now." As I pulled away, I looked in the rearview mirror. Greg was pointing at the house, explaining something to the new owners. He looked like a king surveying his conquest. I drove 2 miles to the Walmart parking lot. This was our new home. I parked in the far corner under a flickering light. I cracked a can of beans for Buster and ate a stale sandwich I'd saved from yesterday. My phone buzzed, a notification from the bank app, the one Greg set up for me but thought I didn't know how to use. Transfer complete. $240,000. My stomach dropped. The house was sold. The money was gone, transferred out of my account instantly. But where did it go?
The nights in the truck were the hardest. At 79, your bones don't like bucket seats. The cold seeped through the metal doors, settling deep in my joints. Buster curled up against my legs, shivering. I draped my old army jacket over him. "It's okay, buddy," I whispered, stroking his golden fur. "Just a camping trip, just like the old days." I couldn't sleep. The image of that bank notification burned in my mind. $240,000. That was the price of my life's work, and it had vanished into an account ending in 8894. I dug into my glove compartment. I kept everything, every receipt, every scrap of paper. I was old school. If it wasn't on paper, it wasn't real. I pulled out a thick envelope marked Greg, Legal. I turned on the overhead light. It was dim, yellow. I put on my reading glasses, the ones held together by duct tape. I sifted through the documents. Power of attorney, deed transfer, quitclaim. I remembered the day I signed them. I had been sick, pneumonia. I was in and out of a fever dream at the VA hospital. Greg had come in with a notary. He said it was for my medical insurance. He said, "Just sign here, Uncle Ray, so they don't stop your treatment." I trusted him. He was family. My finger traced the date on the power of attorney document, October 14th, 2024. Something about that date scratched at the back of my memory. October 14th. Why did that feel wrong? I looked out the window. A security guard car was prowling the parking lot, flashing its lights at an RV parked a few rows over. They were kicking people out. I held my breath, turning off the interior light. I patted Buster's head to keep him quiet. The guard car rolled past us slowly. I shrank down in the seat, feeling a humiliation so deep it made my eyes burn. I was a master sergeant in the U.S. Army. I had medals in a shoebox somewhere, and here I was, hiding in a parking lot like a criminal. The guard car moved on. I let out a breath. I looked back down at the papers in the moonlight. I flipped to the notary stamp. State of Ohio. Commission expires 2026. I needed to know where that money went, and I needed to know why October 14th felt like a lie. I started the truck. I wasn't going to the retirement home. I was going to the library. The public library opened at 9 a.m. I was there at 8:30, waiting by the glass doors. I hadn't shaved in 3 days. My flannel shirt was wrinkled. People walking by gave me a wide berth. I saw a mother pull her child closer as they passed me. "I'm not a bum," I wanted to scream. "I'm Raymond Carter." When the doors opened, I went straight to the public computers. I had to ask the librarian, a kind young woman with purple hair, for help logging in. My fingers were too stiff, and I kept typing the password wrong. "Take your time, sir," she said gently. I finally got in. I went to the bank website. I tried to log in, but it said, "Password incorrect." Greg. He had changed it. Of course he had. I sat back, defeated. I looked around the library. Homeless men were sleeping in the chairs in the back. Is that who I was now? Just another statistic? No. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my flip phone. I dialed the bank's fraud department. "Please enter your account number." I punched it in. "Please enter your PIN." I punched in the numbers I had used for 20 years. Access denied. I slammed the phone down on the desk. The librarian looked over, concerned. I took a deep breath. I needed a different angle. I looked at the papers again. The notary public who witnessed my signature on October 14th. Her name was Linda K. Myers. I typed her name into the search bar. An obituary popped up. Linda K. Myers, beloved mother and grandmother, passed away peacefully on September 2nd, 2024. My heart stopped. September? She died in September. The document was signed in October. A dead woman had notarized the paper that stole my house. I felt a cold chill run down my spine, followed immediately by a hot flush of adrenaline. It wasn't just betrayal, it was a crime, a sloppy, arrogant crime. Greg didn't think I would check. He thought I was just a senile old man who would go quietly into the night. I printed the obituary. I printed the document. I folded them carefully and put them in my pocket. I stood up. My knees popped, but my back was straighter than it had been in years. I wasn't just a sad old man anymore. I was a soldier on a mission. But I needed one more thing. I needed to know where the money went, and for that, I needed to get inside Greg's office.
Greg ran a consulting firm downtown. It was a fancy way of saying he gambled with other people's money. I knew he kept a spare key under the planter by the back door. He used to tell me, "Uncle Ray, I'm terrible with keys, just like Dad." I waited until nightfall. I left Buster with a bowl of water and cracked the windows in a quiet alley 2 blocks away. "I'll be right back, boy. Guard the truck." I walked to Greg's office building. It was a renovated warehouse, trendy and expensive. The back alley was dark. I found the planter. The key was there. I let myself in. The office smelled of expensive leather and stale coffee. I didn't turn on the lights. I used the small flashlight on my keychain. I went to his desk. It was a mess. Papers everywhere. Notices. Final notice. Past due. My nephew wasn't rich. He was broke. Desperately broke. I found his ledger. It wasn't digital. Greg was paranoid about hackers. He wrote everything down in a black notebook. I flipped through the pages. Gambling debts, $45,000. Car loan, $60,000. Bookie, Vinny, $100,000. And there, on the last page, dated yesterday, sale of 422 Maple Drive, plus $240,000. Transfer to Vinny, minus $200,000. He sold my memories to pay off a bookie. He sold the room where my wife died to save his own skin from thugs. I felt tears prick my eyes. Not for the house, but for him. The little boy I used to take fishing. The boy who cried when he scraped his knee. I had loved him. I took out my phone and took pictures of the ledger. I took pictures of the overdue notices. Suddenly, I heard the front door chime. Heavy footsteps. Voices. "I'm telling you, Vinny, the money is wired. You'll have it by morning." It was Greg, and he wasn't alone. "I don't want it by morning, Gregory. I want to see the confirmation now." A deep, gravelly voice. I froze. I was crouched behind his massive oak desk. My knees screamed in protest. "Come on, relax." Greg sounded nervous. "Let's go to my computer." They were coming toward the desk. I held my breath. I was 79 years old. I couldn't fight. If they found me. The footsteps stopped right in front of the desk. "Nice office," the deep voice sneered. "Be a shame if you bled all over it." I pressed my hand over my mouth to stifle the sound of my own breathing. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Look at the screen," Greg said, his voice trembling. "It's processing. See? Transfer pending." There was a silence that stretched for an eternity. Then a grunt. "Fine, but if it bounces, Greg, I take a finger. You understand?" "I understand. It's done. The house is sold. The old man is out." "The old man? Your uncle?" "Yeah, he's clueless. Thinks he's going to a retirement home. He's probably sleeping in his truck right now like a loser." Hearing it out loud broke something inside me. It wasn't the theft. It was the disdain. Loser. "Cold, Greg. Ice cold," the thug laughed. "I like it." They turned and walked away. The door chimed again. Silence returned. I waited for 5 full minutes before I tried to move. My legs were numb. I had to use the desk to pull myself up. I grabbed the black notebook. I wasn't just taking pictures anymore. I was taking the evidence. I slipped out the back door and hurried to the truck. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped my keys twice. When I got inside, Buster licked my face, whining softly. He knew something was wrong. "We got him, Buster," I whispered, my voice raspy. "We got him." But as I drove away, I saw something in the rearview mirror. A black SUV pulled out from the shadows of the alley. It didn't have its lights on. I turned right. It turned right. I turned left. It turned left. It wasn't Greg. It was the thug, Vinny. He must have left someone behind to watch the place, or maybe he saw me leave. I pressed the gas pedal. The old Ford groaned. I couldn't outrun them, not in this truck. I had to be smart. I was a combat engineer in Vietnam. I knew how to use terrain. I headed for the industrial district, the old steel mills. The roads were rough there, full of potholes and debris. My truck could handle it. Theirs fancy SUV couldn't. I saw the flashing lights behind me, not police lights, high beams. They were speeding up, trying to run me off the road. The SUV rammed my bumper. Metal screeched on metal. Buster barked, sliding off the seat. "Hold on, boy!" I yelled. I yanked the wheel hard to the right, hopping a curb and tearing through a chain-link fence into the old rail yard. The truck bounced violently, my tools in the back clattering like gunfire. The SUV hesitated at the curb, then followed, but its low suspension scraped sparks against the concrete. I knew this yard. I used to work security here in the 80s. I knew where the dead ends were. I drove toward the old way station. The path narrowed between two rusted train cars. My truck fit, barely. I checked the mirror. The SUV was too wide. It slammed on its brakes, skidding in the gravel. I didn't stop. I killed the lights and drove deep into the maze of rusted containers. I parked behind a stack of rotting pallets and cut the engine. Silence. Just the ticking of my cooling engine and Buster's heavy panting. I sat there for an hour, watching, waiting. Eventually, I saw the SUV back up and drive away. I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding since 1968. I looked at the black notebook on the seat next to me. I had the proof, but who could I trust? The police? Greg could talk his way out of anything. He'd say I stole the book. He'd say I was senile. No, I needed something stronger than a notebook. I thought about the house, my house. The new owners were moving in on Tuesday. Today was Sunday. I remembered something, a secret I had built into the house 50 years ago, a safe hidden behind the drywall in the basement pantry. I never told anyone about it, not even my wife. It was where I kept the original deed, the one from 1974. But more importantly, I kept my in case of emergency file there. It contained a videotape, a tape I made 10 years ago when I was diagnosed with a heart condition, stating clearly that Greg was never to have power of attorney. If I could get that tape, combined with the fake notary seal, I would have him. But I had to break into my own house to get it. I waited until 3 a.m. on Monday morning. The street was dead silent. The house, my house, sat dark and empty. The new owners hadn't moved in yet, but the locks would be changed. I parked the truck 2 streets over. I left Buster sleeping. "Stay," I commanded softly. He put his head on his paws. I walked through the backyards of my neighbors, moving like a ghost. My arthritis burned, but adrenaline is a powerful painkiller. I reached my back porch. I tried the door. Locked. I went to the basement window, the one behind the hydrangeas. I had deliberately left the latch loose for 40 years just in case I locked myself out. I prayed the bank hadn't fixed it. I pushed. It gave with a groan. I slid feet first into the darkness, landing on a pile of laundry the cleaners had left behind. The smell of the basement hit me. Must, sawdust, and old memories. I clicked on my pen light. I moved to the pantry. The shelves were empty. The bank had cleared everything out. My jars of nails, my wife's canning supplies, all gone. It hurt to look at. I went to the back wall. I counted 3 studs from the left. I took out my pocket knife and pried at the seam in the drywall. I had built a false panel here. It popped open. There it was, a metal firebox. I pulled it out, my hands shaking. I opened it. the original deed, the videotape, digital 8 format, and something else I had forgotten. A savings bond, $10,000, maturation date 2025. I stared at it. It wasn't a fortune, but it was freedom. Suddenly, footsteps upstairs. Heavy boots, not the stealthy steps of a thief, the confident steps of an owner. "Check the basement," a voice said. It was Greg. What was he doing here? "I'm telling you, Vinny thinks the old man took a ledger. He thinks he might have come back here." Greg was hunting me. I clutched the box to my chest. There was no way out. The window was too high to climb back out of quickly. The basement door creaked open. A beam of light cut through the darkness. I scrambled behind the old furnace. The cast iron was cold against my back. "Uncle Ray?" Greg's voice echoed. "I know you're down here. I saw the truck down the street." He was descending the stairs. "Look, Ray, just give me the book. Vinny, he's not a good guy. If you give me the book, I can fix this. I can get you into a really nice home, private room, cable TV." He reached the bottom of the stairs. The flashlight beam swept across the room, dancing over the empty shelves. "Ray, please, I'm your family." I stepped out from behind the furnace. I held the metal box in one hand and my pocket knife in the other. It was a small knife, useless for fighting, but I held it like a weapon. "You're not family," I said, my voice steady and low. "Family doesn't steal a man's life." Greg flinched, shining the light in my eyes. "Ray, put the knife down. You're confused." "I'm not confused. I know about Linda Myers, the notary." Greg went pale. The light wavered. "How?" "I died a month before she signed your paper, Greg. You forged it. You committed fraud, and I have the proof right here." I tapped the box. Greg's face hardened. The nephew was gone. The desperate gambler remained. "Give me the box, Ray." He took a step forward. He was younger, stronger. I was 79. "No." He lunged. I didn't try to fight him. I dropped to the floor, curling around the box. He kicked me, hard, in the ribs. I gasped, pain exploding in my chest. "Give it to me!" He kicked me again. I heard a crack, my rib. "Stop!" A new voice, from the top of the stairs. It wasn't Vinny. It was Mrs. Higgins, the neighbor, and she was holding a shotgun. "I called 911 5 minutes ago when I saw a strange car," she yelled, her voice shaking but fierce. "Get away from him, Greg." Greg froze. He looked at the gun. He looked at me, bleeding on the floor of the house I built. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder. Greg looked at the back door. He looked at me one last time. There was no apology in his eyes, only panic. He ran. He bolted up the stairs and out the back door. Mrs. Higgins rushed down the stairs. "Raymond! Oh my God, Raymond!" I lay there, clutching the box. I tried to smile, but my mouth was full of blood. I kept it. I kept the house. The hospital room was bright, too bright. A detective stood at the foot of my bed. Detective Miller. He looked like a good man. "We caught him. He was trying to board a bus to Chicago. He had the ledger on him, and with the documents you provided, the fake notary, it's an open and shut case, Mr. Carter." I nodded. It hurt to nod. "And the house?" "The sale is void. It was fraudulent. The deed reverts to you. The bank is apologetic. They're wiping the fees." I closed my eyes. Relief washed over me like warm water. I was going home. 1 week later. I sat on my porch. My ribs were taped up. Breathing was still a chore, but the air smelled sweeter. Buster lay at my feet, chewing on a new bone. The lawn was a little overgrown. I looked at my push mower sitting in the driveway. A car pulled up. It was Mrs. Higgins. She had a casserole dish. "Tuna noodle," she said, walking up the steps. "Thought you might be hungry." "Thank you. Martha. I mean, Sarah," I corrected myself. "You need help with that lawn?" I looked at the grass. I looked at my hands. They were old, spotted, tired. "Maybe," I said. "Maybe I'll hire the neighbor kid." I took a sip of iced tea.
I thought about Greg. He was in a cell somewhere. He would be there for a long time. I should feel happy. I should feel victorious. But as I looked at the empty swing where he used to sit as a boy, I just felt a quiet, heavy sadness. I had my house, I had my justice, but I had lost my son. I reached down and scratched Buster's ears. "It's just us now, buddy," I whispered. Buster looked up and wagged his tail. I wasn't alone, not really. I had my dignity, I had my home, and I had the truth. I watched the sun go down over my lawn, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel cold.